What happens in the mid-19th century? You have this huge general purpose technological innovation. Now, in economic history, we distinguish. There are millions, billions of innovations. There are very few, very important general purpose innovation. The steam engine is a typical general purpose innovation. It's applied to production, it's applied to mining, it's applied to transportation, railways, it's applied to steaming, to steamers, it's applied to navigation. So it covers, like the microchip. The microchip is another typical all-purpose innovation. The other, of course, at the end of the 19th century was the dynamo and the electric engine. There are very few and far between major innovations that we call general purpose innovations. Well, and then there were a number of absolutely new institutional changes. Free trade became the mantra of the day. Everybody was keen on free trade. The gold standard, payments, no more risk of exchange rate fluctuations, etc. Very easy to move capital across the world. And finally, domestic institutions became much more trade-friendly than in the other. I don't spend words with you. We know the history of transportation. We started with canals, then railways, then steamships. Very important is this innovation, again with the steam engine, but you begin to understand that you can create by exchanging heat for coal, you create a refrigerated ship. This opens up an enormous possibility of exploiting trade in meat. Revolution in Europe. And then, last but not least, the telegraph, my friends. Telegraph is the internet of the 19th century. And a very powerful internet for that. Just to give you a few numbers, for 10 years you have productivity in US transport growing almost 5% per annum, which is enormous price convergence. You have prices in different locations in the United States that differ by about 100% at the beginning of this period, around 1820. Before the Civil War, price gaps were reduced to 10%. Transatlantic rates, with the introduction of the steam engine and some other attendant technology, in particular the propeller, submerged propeller, rather than the typical Mississippi boats that have the two wheels on both sides of the ship. Very well. And again, transport costs about 1.5% per annum, meaning that there is a drop in transportation costs of about 70% in this period of time. This is the ingredient of the first globalization as far as technology is concerned. Look at this. This is an interesting placard in New York in 1858, rejoice all nations. There was really also exactly as it is in our days, enthusiasm about globalization. There was propaganda about globalization. People were taken, amazed. This is the first one. Actually, this attempt then failed, and look at the end of the 19th century. What is the submarine cables network that you have. It's amazing, you know. And what does this mean? It means that price convergence, for instance, in asset prices, about more or less the same process that took place with the internet. You can buy assets from London in Sydney in a matter. Now you do it in a matter of seconds. Then you do it in a matter of a couple of hours. You know, it makes a difference, but not such a difference. Institutions. We begin in 1815 with the Congress of Vienna making the Rhine a free-to-all waterway. There's a reaction to mercantilism and to lust, the big last attempt of mercantilism, that is the continental blockade by Napoleon. That's the last big block against globalization, against trade. And then you move on. Oh, sorry. You move on. You have the Solferine. You have the this very important moment when the British repealed the Corn Laws. There is a customs union in Austria. There is a fair commercial treaty between France and Britain, and there are monetary unions that take place in them. So this is a big moment when institutions are all globalization friendly, and globalization really takes place. Then you have the gold standard, the wire allows, and then international banking. I move on fast. So that commodity and financial asset prices became really global. I could give you a large number of figures showing you the convergence of prices across. Then there is, of course, wage convergence. Wage convergence. Someone said this morning, some of you were here, people moved in the first globalization in incredible numbers, much more than they do. If there is something that is characteristic of the first globalization, the second globalization was unable to match, is the movement of people. Think only of this. There was a more or less 50% wage gap for unskilled workers between Italy and the United States. Well, this 50% wage gap, was enough to get about 3 million people out of the population of 27 million move from Italy to the United States in the space of a couple of decades. Think of now. Now we have the wage gap between the so-called developed world, Europe and the United States, and the developing world is 1 to 10. Yet we have much less movement, fewer people move. Why? Because we have created institutions that, good or bad reasons I don't want to discuss here, that are in the way of people moving around. If so many moved with just 50% wage gap, would you imagine how many would move with this colossal wage gap that I have?